I control the truth of stereo is the truth. Stereo! Whoa! Whoa, whoa! Oh shit. Mystic receiver. I can do this all day. Anyway, welcome to today's video. If I don't do that other bit before I do that bit, there'll be no context for what I just did. But that's fine, because there's no need for the intro to exist. If I'm perfectly honest with you, the video itself is concise, perfect, really. Doesn't need anything added to the beginning or the end, but format dictates that I must be here, otherwise you will think something's weird, and in these uncertain times, we can't have anything that isn't too unfamiliar, so I'm here for you, sweet baby. The months before a new console generation kicks off are amazing because people will just say anything. You can claim any frame rate you want, say any console outperforms PC, pretend any trailer is actual gameplay. You can let pretty much any kind of total bollocks spew from your decaying mouth and it's perfectly fine. Mislead the public, tell half-truths or outright lies. You won't even face any accountability for it usually. It's a magical time where wishes don't exactly come true, but you're more than happy to believe they do, and there's an army of executives, directors and marketing reps ready to
make you believe.
There are people who still haven't answered for shit they said the PS3 could do that it bloody well couldn't. Seriously, this year you can get away with saying pretty much anything you want about pretty much anything. It's a console launch year. We can get away with murder. Actual bloody murder with a wrench, and as long as you shout teraflops while you're beating Professor Plum's skull and face and neck in, everything's fine. Anything goes in the billiards room. It's always in the billiards room, isn't it? I think Cluedo is the only place most people have seen a billiards room. But that's what you get when you're rich. A room just to keep your billiards in. Green screen deceiver. Voodoo believer. I'm a poet now, is my thing. Justin sits cross-legged on the floor behind the camera when I talk to him. Just in case you're thinking like I'm talking to someone who's like kneeling in supplication to me. No, it's cross-legged. I would never make someone kneel, they just have to sit cross-legged and bow. The AAA video game industry is full of bullshit. Publicists tell lies like they eat pies with a knife and fork on a plate. Sometimes the lies are small, claiming a game's not in development when they're set to announce that game in 24 hours. Sometimes the lies are big, all the unrepresentative media making Colonial Marines look far better than it is because it makes Colonial Marines look competent. Sometimes the lies are so pointless and petty they exist for no sensible reason. About half the things Sean Murray said about No Man's Sky before it released. The road to new console launches, however, is where lies come to party. Big, obvious lies, some of them previously told in the run-up to other console generations. Lies with grains of truth in them so nobody can claim they were misled when a touted feature is about a quarter as effective as initially presented. It is 2020, Liar's Year, a year that rears its head only once every half a decade, if you're lucky, a wondrous, fantabulous year where all bets are off, the truth can eat shit, and anybody who doesn't like it will be called a stop having fun style killjoy who is spoiling the hype for everyone by pointing out that the game industry has done nothing to earn your trust. Hell, tell lies just for the hell of it. It's Liar's Year, you clowns. Animal Crossing isn't a tedious piece of shit. It's Liar's Year. It's like The Purge, but for deceiving your friends and family instead of bashing them to pieces. I can't wait for The Purge to be real, which it might as well be now. You hear that, Craig? The moment the purge is real, I'm making you eat lawnmower parts, you shit. Until our purgy dreams come true, we'll always have Liars Year. The year of liars who tell lies like lying liars.
Would I lie?
Liars Year 2020 has been a pretty decent one for the game industry already. Microsoft set the tone with its recent Inside Xbox event, where next-gen Xbox Series X gameplay footage of actual gameplay was highly touted, except that's not what we got. It was mostly a bunch of pre-prepped, in-engine footage that in no way represented how each game would actually play. Ubisoft was the biggest shitter of them all, fully redefining gameplay trailer as a trailer without any gameplay in it. The so-called gameplay trailer for Assassin's Creed Valhalla was nothing. It was actually nothing. The closest it comes to revealing gameplay is a few seconds of combat footage that is itself heavily manipulated in terms of direction and camera angles. It's staged. In Liars Year 2020, staging gameplay rather than showing it is just part of the fun. And Ubisoft's a dab fucking hand at it.
Hang on. I'm trying to look happy. An image, not a video.
This is as happy as I can get it. There we are.
Why were you doing the sound and the motion for the thumbnail?
Ubisoft, as every good child knows, is a legendary liar. It lies about everything all of the time. Like a liar. Like Randy Pitchford. Like a liar. This is not, for example, the first time Ubisoft has gone with its own definition of gameplay rather than the literal, actual, literal definition. It seems that so long as it's some form of in-engine footage, Ubisoft is quite happy to claim it's the game in action, which is true on a technical level. You are seeing the game at work, but it's working in a way that you will never see or experience when it's an actual product in your home. We see this technical truth in Epic Games' recently unveiled Unreal Engine 5 footage. Now, Epic apparently isn't lying when it says Lumen in the Land of Nanite is running on a PlayStation 5, just like I'm not lying when I say the demo has an embarrassing name, but it's also a game that doesn't exist, presented in a context that no real game will find itself in. It's a small demo, allowing Epic to pour all its resources into making it look as gorgeous and detailed as possible. It's on PS5, but it's not actual PS5 gameplay footage. It's a look at what's possible. It's what developers say a PS5 game might look like under perfect lab conditions with a limitless time and money to get it looking perfect. Epic, to its credit, didn't present the footage as anything but speculative, but this demo nonetheless highlights perfectly one of the common ways in which publishers lie about their own footage, using that technical truth. In fact, Ubisoft did exactly what Epic Games did, it was just way less upfront about it. The Assassin's Creed Valhalla gameplay trailer actually features in small print the exact same disclaimer that could be attached to Lumen in the Land of Nanite.
Game and console in development, footage representative of expected Xbox Series X gameplay.
Expected. Speculative. Assassin's Creed Valhalla didn't get a gameplay trailer, it got a series of clips of what Ubisoft thinks Assassin's Creed Valhalla might look like. And just because Ubisoft thinks it'll probably look that way, they're allowed to just straight up lie and claim they have a gameplay trailer. This is not to say that Epic Games, whose smash hit success Fortnite is built off the back of coercive and abusive employee treatment, allegedly, isn't fond of talking shit in service to the marketing machine. It has an immense amount of GPU power, but also multi-order bandwidth increase in storage management. That's going to be absolutely critical, said Epic's Tim Sweeney, saying things that don't mean jack shit to the vast majority of game-buying customers. The storage architecture on the PS5 is far ahead anything you can buy on anything on PC for any amount of money right now. That's how it was written. Far ahead of anything you can buy on anything on PC. Far ahead of anything you can buy on. It's going to help drive future PCs! The PC market is going to see this thing ship and say, oh wow, SSDs are going to need to catch up with this. Nah. Look, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I know better than Tim Sweeney. Like I just said, the tech specs he's banging on about mean mostly fuck all to me because I'm not that much of a fucking nerd. So I'm absolutely not qualified to tell the man his business or like I know better, but also, nah. I'll donate $1,000 to the charity of Sweeney's choice if the PC market's future winds up determined by the PlayStation 5. That's what insufferably arrogant men do when they think they're proving a point, right? They say they'll donate to some arsehole's charity. Yeah, I won't be convinced at this stage that such claims are anything but wildly hyperbolic. The claims about the PS5, not about charities. What evidence do I have backing up my conviction that a game industry promise is a gross overstatement? Oh, you know, just decades and decades of the game industry's existence. Do you remember when the Xbox One was going to be a big DRM machine that would check constantly online with its electric eye to make sure that you weren't a dirty criminal doing dirty stealing? And then Major Nelson, do you remember Major Nelson said that, oh, we can't just flip a switch and turn that off even though you don't like it and it is wrong and bad that we have done it? And we said, oh, it's still wrong and bad that you have done it, you should flip a switch. And then he said, okay, I will. That also was a bad lie from video games. Ooh. What other bad lies are there? Why not tell me in the comments? And subscribe and click the bell. Because apparently like 10% of you click the bell. No wonder these videos don't get any views. The industry's push for graphics over any other form of content has been a major contributor to the aura of trickery that defines Liar's year. The drive to make games look better, more realistic, and more effects-laden than ever before has seen publishers become increasingly desperate as they push for prettier games, while current technology offers diminishing returns. We're at the point where console production is threatening to outpace graphical advances, leading to each generation feeling just that little bit less impressive. It's not like technical advances aren't being made, but the game industry pushes graphics ahead of any other development when hyping new hardware. The audio-visual shit is the first thing a customer will experience, so it gets a lot of marketing attention, even though the biggest and most popular mainstream games in history haven't been the best looking. In fact, some of them look like arse. We've seen the results of this need to visually impress at any cost. Way back in 2005, Sony was legendarily misleading with falsified footage of Killzone 2. The demo made the PS3 look like it was light years ahead of contemporary systems when it was first unveiled at that year's E3, but it was complete fabrication. It was nowhere near that densely populated, dynamically animated, or just that fucking good. An interesting little point is this article I found while I was doing the final little finishing touches on the show. This article's about a no-clip documentary on Horizon Zero Dawn, and the Killzone 2 E3 footage is addressed, with Guerrilla's executive producer Angie Smets saying that the misleading trailer was in fact an internal vision, Guerrilla's idea of what a first-person shooter might look like. Sony then took that footage, which Guerrilla didn't intend for the public, and presented it as real-time PS3 footage, which it wasn't.
You know, we worked really hard on this visionary piece, our vision for the future of gaming. And then somebody from, I believe it was the marketing group in the States said, yeah, and this is running real time on a PlayStation 3. And we were watching this back home going like, no, what does he just say? Because, you know, that's not true. But then we figured like, you know, nobody will believe that because it's obvious that it's all rendered.
I bring this up not just because it's an interesting look at how publishers view gameplay footage in and of itself, but it also backs up what I said earlier. The Killzone 2 footage, very much like the other footage we've been talking about, is mere speculation. That's what so many of these bullshit next-gen trailers are. They're an idea of what developers think might happen, which would be fine in an industry that isn't obsessed with pre-orders and demanding trust from customers that has simply not been earned. Naturally, Ubisoft's world-famous lies are ever present in this department. It once famously showcased Watch Dogs at the big PS4 press conference in 2012, except it was running on a high-end PC and the PS4 version would never achieve the promised razzle-dazzle. In fact, just look at the number of next-gen trailers over the years that have been nothing like advertised, or not even been games at all. The great irony here is that while bullshots and fake trailers are great for incredibly short-term hype, they only lead to long-term disappointment. When you've already told us a game looks one way, anything less than advertised is gonna look shitty, even if it's actually still really good looking, simply because it's less than expected. We saw this with Watch Dogs. On PS4, it's still really visually quite good, but it's not what Ubisoft said people would get on that system, so people shat all over the graphics. That's the irony. The better you make a game look, the worse it will look if it's not like that. It's called How the Human Brain Works. You'd think an industry that is so interested in screwing around with that brain to extract money from it would, know that. Golden Retriever. Ooh, Space Daddy. Really thinking of taking that to a club. One of the best things about Liar's Year is that you can count the number of actual game journalists in existence on one hand. Corin Halfhand's hand, am I right, Game of Thrones fans, huh? Am I right? Seriously, there's a minuscule portion of games media pundits who could actually reasonably be called journalists. Most of what you call game journalists are journalists in the way Assassin's Creed Valhalla's gameplay trailer was a gameplay trailer. This is fine. I'm not a journalist, never have been. I'm a duplicitous hack. That's why I like Liar's Year, but it does mean that plenty of Games Press websites will just reprint the lies of the industry unchallenged, only later publishing articles about how fans are mad over the misrepresentative statements that were repeated verbatim without any checks in place. It's a long and tiresome cycle I've seen time and time again in my 15+ years of games media work. Industry mouthpieces can say whatever, and their bullshit will be uncritically published. Not that I entirely blame the press. Actual journalism is hardly allowed to flourish in this medium. If it was, we'd be hearing more than the handful of horror stories we hear every year. Game news sites would be a daily fucking nightmare of abuse and exploitation. Trust me. There's a lot of dark shit. Reporters like Jason Schreier have to get their information from terrified developers under condition of anonymity because the truth will get you booted, blacklisted, and buried. It's the only way I've been able to share most of the things the Jimquisition has shared from within the iron walls of game publisher headquarters. And speaking of blacklisting, the industry is not shy about revoking access for publications who pull too tightly on their leashes. Any publication can be denied event invitations, review copies, and basic acknowledgement. I know, I've been blacklisted plenty of times for saying things the industry didn't want to hear. Or rather, didn't want you to hear. The mainstream game industry has its script. It has its truth. Mysterio is the truth! And the press will speak that truth, not to power, but in service to power. Regardless of blame, too many liars have been allowed a platform to just keep lying. The continued forgiveness and afforded credibility enjoyed by Peter Molyneux is evidence enough that sometimes we could stand to not hand the microphone over to any old bullshitter and let them speak without pushback. Time and time again, Molyneux was caught lying, and time again he was given a chance to lie some more. In fact, when Rock Paper Shotgun actually called the man out for years of lying, it was RPS that got told off for being too mean. I mean, the bit where they called him a pathological liar was sketchy, you know, don't diagnose anyone if you're not a fucking doctor, but Molyneux skated merrily across the sympathy he got off the back of that interview, which only allowed him to lie some more. Reading developer interviews where microtransactions and loot boxes are brought up is a unique kind of frustration for a man who spends most of his time whining and complaining about monetization. The amount of times over the past 8 years that directors and producers and executives have been allowed to repeat their half-truths and gaslighty obfuscations without the slightest hint of protest. I still haven't seen a single reporter bring up issues of addiction and psychological exploitation directly to the mouthpieces they platform when they start talking insincere crap to try and justify their predatory economies. We had to rely on outside fucking politicians to get some of these people to answer for their shit. Why don't you take these people to task, Jim? Well, I would, but I've been blacklisted for trying to take the industry to task. The game industry doesn't see its press as anything close to something it should be held to account by. The press has always been, in publisher eyes, a mere extension of marketing, an outlet for them to publish their truth. Lies The industry is so used to lying it'll do so without a moment's hesitation. Remember the run-up to last gen, the heady promises? I especially remember Sony's Play Now promise. In fact, we did an entire episode on that a while ago. Before the PS4 came out, Sony made a massive fucking deal about how you can start downloading a game and playing it while it downloads. This was presented as something far more straightforward and, well, better than it actually was. Rather than letting you jump into a game as it downloads, it's either straight up not possible to do, or it's available in an incredibly limited capacity. Final Fantasy XV, for example, lets you play as the game downloads, but only one tiny little arena where you fight a handful of respawning goblins. Some games only get you as far as the menu, plenty of them claim they're ready to start, and even show up as fully downloaded on the PS4's home screen, but they have nothing to actually play. And there's still hours left before the game's actually ready. And like I said, there's no lasting accountability. Sony's never been asked about that. I'm the only one who seems to ever bang on about it. Apparently, you can just say games are playable while they're downloading, then spend 5 years breaking that promise daily, and your grateful audience will still be ready to lap up a new generation of artifice and chicanery. This generation, speed is being pushed as well as graphics, and I'll be keeping a close fucking eye on exactly how fast the next generation of consoles is. According to this article, load times in next-gen games will be, and I quote, non-existent. Look at this Polygon quote. The new drive, which Sony claims is faster than any on-market device available right now, won't just make load times almost non-existent, but will also enable developers to access the data their games are composed of with unprecedented speed. The result is larger game worlds loading much faster than ever before, which could result in drastic changes to how developers approach everything from balancing visual quality and performance to level design. Yeah. Jim Sterling will remember that. And if next-gen load times are not virtually non-existent, we will most assuredly be revisiting Liar's Year 2020, where the truth is virtually non-existent. Thank God for me. I hope you enjoy your Liar's Year. Why not try it at home? Deceive your friends and loved ones. Hey Craig, I love your new trousers. I love how they make you look like a complete jizz bastard.